Hey, Slay Nation, it's your host Heather back with another episode of the So She Slays podcast. Today I have Nida in the studio. She is a master certified coach, Fortune 500 executive, TEDx organizer, and startup founder. She has 20 years of experience across business, psychology, personal transformation, and really helps high performing individuals and leaders make sure that their life is in alignment with the things that we're doing. Particularly, we're going to be speaking to high achieving women today, in particular, the hidden cost of being a high achieving woman. Now, I'm laughing because that is your girl right here, like high achieving woman. And I will tell you that I did not realize the hidden cost of being a high achieving woman. I should have. There was definitely signs along the way, but I missed them completely. So we're going to be talking about that today. And hopefully, if you do identify with some of the things that we talk about, we're going to kind of give you a little bit of like stepping stones on maybe what the heck you can do about it. Because Lord knows, as high achieving women, we're like, great, you told me the problem, but how the hell do I fix it? It's annoying if you don't give me any resources. So we're going to try and figure that out as we go through the show. But before we jump into the conversation, Nida, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing really well, Heather. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course. Give our listeners, we had a little nice discussion offline about all the things, and Nita will definitely be back on the podcast because I need to pick her brain more. But in regards to your passion for relationships and really helping these high achievers, because you yourself, I mean, would you categorize yourself as a high achiever?
Probably. Yeah.
Yes, I would. But like, give us a little bit of a rundown of like how you came to be so passionate about this and like what you've kind of learned along the way yourself.
You mean about relationships,
Yeah,
right?
about the relationships and like um probably what you've witnessed yourself as a high achiever in like your relationships, like across the board, not just romantic, but probably like platonic, probably familial,
Mm.
career.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I can relate to all that. I don't know when my obsession with psychology and relationships started. I think I don't know. Maybe it was a book I read. Maybe it was a moment. It was a stage of life or something. But I definitely, so 18 years ago, I started a child development center after I quit my corporate job with these Fortune 500 companies, and that was when I learned that I am obsessed with relationships, with psychology, and with like helping people. And that was kind of the point that I knew I had to be doing something with psychology and people. And then later on, I got certified as a coach, and I got, I tried to get certified on so many modalities in the coaching space and therapeutic modalities as well. And, but talking about relationships, I I really started to get like super obsessed around the time of COVID. So that
Mm.
was like how many years ago? 5, 6 years ago already.
Oh my gosh, already,
Um,
right?
and I remember listening to this TED talk, which actually led me to become a TEDx organizer as well, and got me into this whole thesis of studying like relationships and really trying to solve the problem for myself, right? The TED talk, the name of the talk, it's quite a really popular talk. So it's called "What Makes a Good Life,"
Ooh,
and the talk is about Harvard's longest running study on adult development. It's been running for over 85 years.
yeah.
They've done it with like four generation of people, and what they found, the number one factor that helps people live a long, healthy, and happy life is not food, is not exercising. It's actually the quality of the relationships in your life.
Mm.
And I think that talk was released like 10 years ago. So I listened to this talk 10 years ago, but I didn't really seriously do anything about it yet because I was just so busy being a workaholic, right?
Yeah.
And just working and doing all the things that I'm passionate about. and I just didn't have the space to invest in relationships. And so that the talk stayed with me, right? I always thought about it, but I didn't really do anything about it yet until COVID.
Mm.
I think that during COVID, we were all kind of forced to like be with ourselves,
Yep, sit with
right?
ourselves and all of the
Yeah,
grossness that can bring.
yeah, yeah. And I realized that, I am surrounded by a lot of people. I've always had friends, good people, right?
Yeah.
But not necessarily the people that you would want to have these like deep intellectual conversations with, not the type of people that like are at the same level of like outlook in life and mindset and all these things in terms of like mission, vision, and what is your life purpose and what do you want to do for the world, right?
Mhm.
And I pretty much have been in that kind of space, like, wanting to change the world and what can I do with the skills that I have, right? And it's not always the case that your high school friends are gonna want to have that conversation with
I
you,
mean,
right?
true.
So yeah, so I really thought about that. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna, as a coach, you set goals, right? So
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna set a goal for myself, and the goal was to add 100 people to my inner circle. And I wrote it on a post-it, stuck it on the door and in my bedroom, and I was like, how do I do it? I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I swear I'm an introvert, right? I am a huge introvert, and yeah, I don't really socialize. I don't really, I'm a huge introvert, and people don't really believe that, but it's true. And I didn't really know how to do it. So what I started with was like, okay, let's go to these like chamber of commerce events,
Yeah.
right? Which was like so boring, but I stuck with it. So I went to like 5 or 6 of those events, and I was like, I'm not really making any friends here. And you're just going there and giving people like your name card, whatever, a business card, and nothing happens, right?
Yeah.
And then later on, I became a member at one of the clubhouse. So it's Soho House. We
Yeah.
have a bunch of these like around the world, right? So I became a member there, and I met a few really good friends there that are like I see them as my lifelong friends, right?
Wow.
And I even became a TEDx organizer because I met someone there that was a TEDx organizer, and that's how I found out about the whole idea. And for me, being a TEDx organizer, that's my best friendship strategy. I've met so many amazing people that became speakers, that became volunteers, because the TED brand itself attracts these kind of people that are like change makers, right? So I went through all these strategies, and there's other things as well that I probably don't want to go into all the
Yeah.
details, but I really tried a lot of things. I'm a problem solver, right? I think like all high achievers are like people that solve problems, right?
Yeah.
I can solve problems the way that I solve my problems in the career, in business, and like I'll use them with everything in my
Yeah.
life. And so, yeah, I somehow through this whole journey, I transformed myself from like super introvert to like super connector. And through that process, I discovered so many things. I discovered so many skills that I had, and parts of myself. I didn't even know I had it in me to be a super connector. And I did it so naturally. It's like so natural that I would connect person A to person B, for example. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, I think this person can help you. You should talk to this person and you should talk to that person. But
Yeah.
before all this, I was not in an ecosystem that allowed me to do these things,
Mm.
right? Because I was like working by myself and like either like with my team or my clients. Like I was not in an ecosystem to be making these introductions and
Yeah.
connecting other people. But when I got into the right ecosystem, when I got into this mission, okay, I'm gonna do a TEDx thing, that was when I like really, started to realize that I'm naturally someone that enjoys connecting other people with other people. And I really wanted people to experience what I got to experience, which is like this fulfillment from meeting like-minded people that share your vision and mission in life. And we're trying to solve the same problem, but just in a different way and with
Right.
different skills, right?
Yeah.
But you share the vision and the mission, and yeah, it's just a feeling I don't know how to describe, and I wanted other people to have that as well. So that's one of the reasons that I decided to become a TEDx organizer as well, because I wanted to build community.
So
Yeah.
that's so interesting to me because we're literally talking about high achieving. And this
Mm.
is the like pushback that I've given to a lot of people, including my therapist, right? You're clearly a high achiever. I'm a high achiever, like self-identified and like diagnosed. Also diagnosed by my lovely therapist. Shout out. But what I will say is like this is what I'm talking about. It is really hard to take a close look at being a high achiever and the cost of being a high achiever when it works. Like it
Mm.
works, right? Because if you didn't
Yes.
set that goal, if you yourself didn't solve the problem because of being high, like you wouldn't have hit that goal. The same thing with me.
Mm.
Being a high achiever has always worked for me, right? It got me to where I am. It got me to like chase the dreams. It got me to like complete the goals. I'm doing the things that I want to do. But
Mm.
there's a second half to this that we have to talk about when it comes to
Yes.
the relationships in our life. And I'm going to speak upon some actual experience that I myself have gone through. And I
Mm.
didn't think at the time that that was what was happening. And then, older, wiser, and some years of therapy will open your eyes. What I will say though is that I I would say in my 20s especially, like
Mm.
workaholic, like definitely 110%. But I also really liked what I was doing. And so it didn't
Yes.
feel like work all the time. And I was like, I was doing this, I'm
Yes.
doing that, and I'm moving and I'm shaking and I'm like always like I'm doing what felt good. It wasn't
Yes.
until afterwards, or even there was some cases in those moments. I can remember two instances. One, in a friend type of conversation, right? Many of you know, So She Slays is co-founded by one of my nearest and dearest best friends, Chauncey. Her and I were having a conversation once, and she was like, Heather, the friends that are closest to you just know how you operate and we love you for it. She's like, but your ass will go and disappear for weeks. And then all of a sudden you reappear and you're like, oh, hey guys, what's up? And like you missed a whole ass thing. She goes, we don't like hold
Mm.
it against you. We know that you're working and you're busy and you have things going on. So we're not going to like, make you feel bad for it. But that
Mm.
happens. Like your ass is gone. We don't hear from you. It's like, oh, are you alive? And at the time I was like, oh well, thank you so much for at least just like understanding and like understanding where I'm coming from and don't take it personally. And they never did, right? Never did. However, I was like, in hindsight, I was like, that was probably not a great friend move, Heather. What the fuck? And then at the same time too, um I would say I was talking with another one of my friends, and we were talking about dating. And like in my 20s, I didn't do a lot of dating. Probably in like my mid to late 20s, I didn't do a lot of dating because I was hustling. I was working. I had shit going on. I didn't have time for that. But I would try and date here and there just to like dip my toe in the water and be like, am I really that interested in this right now? And high achievers, you'll know sometimes you have seasons. Maybe you're not interested in it at that moment in time. But I was talking to another friend and I was talking about dating during this time period. And she flat out told me, she's like, you do not need to be dating right now. She's like, you would make
Mm.
a horrible partner. I was like, oh. And she's like, I'm serious. Not because you can't be a good partner. It's just, where the hell are you going to fit it? Where? Tell me how you're going to
Mm.
fit it. How you're going to show up for the other person. It's not physically possible for you right now. And I was like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So that is what I kind of want to talk about with you, right? When it comes to the cost of being an overachiever.
Mm.
I think a lot of people struggle with this and they don't realize it at the time. And I want to talk about like, what is it that makes us so blind to these things? And how do we become a little bit more self-aware and observant of when this is happening? Because I want to hit on your subject too of like what makes a happy life. The relationships. It's not the actual like material or the work goals.
Yes. So I think what keeps high achievers blind to the fact that they aren't really living a balanced life. It really, there is no balanced life, right? It's like it's seasonal. It's like
Yeah.
this season you're building a startup. You can't be like investing in every other area of your
Yeah.
life. So there's kind of like we live life in kind of sort of like mini seasons. Um, but I think that it's because what you were mentioning, it's because high achievers get so much dopamine and fulfillment from doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they value ambition,
Mm-hmm.
they value hard work. And so by being a high achiever, they admire, they respect what they're doing,
Yeah.
right? And that kind of keeps them in the loop. And I think like for me, the sacrifice or the cost for me was my health, right? So back during COVID, apart from doing all this, all the things and the projects that I've been doing, I went back to do a PhD in social psychology on top of all that. And you're supposed to be doing a PhD full time. You're not supposed to be doing anything. Talk about high achiever. I literally thought at the moment, oh, this is easy. Like, I'm a straight A student. This is going to be so easy. Like, I really thought that. I never have done a thesis before, a PhD thesis. I've never done that. But I'm like, okay,
It can't be that hard. I do hard things all the time.
Yeah, I'm a capable person. I can do it. I'll figure it out, right? And so I finished all the coursework. It was really easy because I already had the psychology background, right? So it was like the coursework was easy. That was not the problem. But then I had to do the research. And because I was stuck to my desk, like when you become a PhD student, you're stuck to your desk like 16 hours a day.
Oy.
And I don't know how long that was going on, but I had a serious back problem. And it took like 3 or 4 years to recover. So that was the cost that I had to pay. Right. And when I look at other people that are living a life that's not very balanced, I think they also, it's very common for high achievers to be very lonely.
Yeah.
Because of their, like, they're just pouring all their energy and time investment into their team, into their business, into the work and the clients, right? And I don't know, like a decade or 2 decades pass, and then they're like, "Where's everybody? Right? Where are all my friends? Where are all my relationships?" And I think that's the cost that they have to pay in terms of relationship and health. Yeah, and I think we're blinded to that because we just find so much fulfillment and we're passionate about what we do. And like you said, I feel the same. I don't feel like this is work. When people say, like, what? How can you be building like these two things, startups, and also be doing this other things? I'm like, I'm having fun. Like I really, and I'm not delusional. I really am having fun with it. And well, now it's different because I really have a balanced life at the moment.
Yeah.
So when people ask me like, am I busy? I kind of like look a little bit weird because I don't feel like I'm busy. And we were talking about AI and how AI is helping us with all the work. Right? So I think I need to thank AI for helping me live a balanced life. So nowadays I don't say I'm busy, and I don't really like it when people say they're busy. I like to say that I'm productive. Because like for me now, the shift has been when somebody is busy, it's like they don't know what their priorities are. You know what I mean? Like they're just busy, like hustling and do all these crazy stuff. Like it's like you're not prioritizing, and you're like it's costing you something.
It's costing you something. And it's always
I don't want to be that person. Yeah, I don't want to be that person anymore. I used to think that being a workaholic, and like I used to really like admire Elon Musk for working 16 hours a day. He was like my idol, right? And I don't feel like that anymore, meaning I would rather be someone that lives okay, it's not going to be a perfectly balanced life, but at least like I'm not in a chaotic, busy, like working all the time,
Yeah.
having no time for my friends and having no time to meet people. I don't want to be that person anymore. And now that I'm aware and I see people that are like that, you kind of like, oh, that's like the busy person. I don't want to be like that. And it kind of I don't know how to explain the feeling, but when you come across someone that's like really busy and chaotic, and you can see it in their text messages and
Yeah.
their emails and things like that, and the way they show up in a conversation with you, or even in like during lunch, it's just like this like
This,
kind of like anxiety
yeah,
in the
I'm like, it's this
background.
scattered undertone of energy, and they're bouncing from
Yeah.
subject to subject. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I have made that discovery myself too, and I've like worked.
Mm,
It's actively, it's a conscious effort. Okay, it's a conscious effort to make
mm,
these like things work here.
yes.
Uh,
Yes.
but I really want to touch on too, and this is something that we're, and I want to apologize to our audience because we are touching on so many deeper subjects that we could really dive deeper into, but I want to be able just to kind of just get your mind thinking about this, especially if you self-identify or somebody have told you you're workaholic or you're high achiever and all that kind of stuff, like what it actually is costing you. And a lot of times this comes from this mindset almost of, not necessarily, would you agree or disagree, like high achievers aren't necessarily thinking or afraid of being alone, but more or less like being seen, and that's why they stay busy.
Well, I would say this part about being scared about being seen, or being seen in a like the
Vulnerable.
vulnerable
Yeah,
parts,
yeah.
the emotional, those kind of parts of you that don't feel that you're competent,
Yeah.
and you're not on top of things, you're not managing well, you're not in control. I would say that that's not always the case for all high achievers, but it is common because I remember I watched this particular podcast, and this guy that used to work for the CIA, he said that the first thing people learn when you get into the CIA is they tell you that they recruit the people that work for the CIA are people that have childhood trauma
Ooh.
and have gone through like tough things. And these people have the drive to achieve and
Wow.
to get things done and to do whatever the CIA requires you to do. Now, I'm not saying it perfectly. I'm probably like,
Paraphrasing for sure, but that's okay.
yeah. But basically, there is a correlation between someone that is like successful and trauma, like childhood trauma,
Mm,
because it gives you that drive to succeed.
wow.
Right? It's almost putting you in a fight or flight mode. Like, I need to achieve, but it's like wanting to achieve out of like almost this sense of desperation, or otherwise I will not survive.
Yeah.
And my self-worth is tied to my achievement and all the trophies and accolades that I get. That's linked to my
100%.
survival in life, right? So to answer your question, are all high achievers like that? No, there are high achievers, and it's funny because I actually did a psychological profile, like on one of those psychology apps,
Yeah.
and it says that I am ambitious but chilled about it.
Yeah.
I'm ambitious, but I have all
What
these
an
big goals and
oxymoron.
visions, but I'm chilled about it. So I'm chilled in the sense that I'm not like I need to get here by what day, when, what year. I need to achieve this, whatever. No, it's more like I have this vision, and I'm like I'll get there when I get there. So I'm like I do have that chilled, like spontaneous part
Yeah.
of my personality. And do I feel like personally? Do I feel scared to be seen? Personally, not. No,
Mm.
I'm actually a very sensitive person. I can cry in front of strangers. I'm like I can be emotional, and like not in a like crazy way, but more like I can share like deep stories with people that I
Yeah.
just met, and in that
Vulnerable.
sense. But I think what you're talking about, and what I see is are people that really have their wall up, and this we can see a lot in not just like high achieving women, but high achieving men.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even research that talks about this, like high achieving men or high achieving women that have an avoidant attachment style. That's kind of linked, right? And that allows them to focus and get the job done
Yeah.
and drive the business and be successful in the career, right? Because they don't let anything emotional bother them. And they're kind of like, part of being having an avoidant attachment style means you're just like running away from all the issues
Yeah.
that you need to be facing. And that's kind of useful when you're building a
Business.
business,
I was
right?
like, being able. So this is how I framed it, because you're describing me. You're describing me. And I didn't know that was what was happening. That's the thing, is because
yes,
I tend to frame it as compartmentalizing. I don't have time for this. I'm gonna deal with it in a second. I got to get this done first because X, Y, and Z, right? And that's kind of how I went about it. And then I started doing therapy, obviously, and that stuff was being brought to the surface. And it wasn't necessarily fear of being vulnerable, because here's the thing: I myself can connect with people. I'm not someone who naturally would say I was comfortable crying in front of people, but I can share stories of struggle. I can share stories of success. I can connect and relate to people. But I think what it was when it came to vulnerability, and what I saw in myself, was like, I'm afraid to let people truly in, like truly in, to see behind the togetherness. I'm like crying on the bathroom floor because did I just blow up my life type of a thing. I don't know if I can pay rent. I don't know if, I can have the money for groceries this week. Oh shoot, my car just broke down. I don't have the money to fix this. How do I do this? The being stressed out because I'm like, I need another client. I need other, that type of vulnerability, right? Because when you're an entrepreneur, you're like, no, we have to be the togetherness, right? And not having that vulnerable side of stuff. But even when it comes to romantic relationships, I want to say that work stuff, the compartmentalizing and all that kind of stuff, tends to attract people who are also avoidant. But also, it takes a lot of learning on your end to stop doing that. I'm thankful that I'm in a healthier relationship now, and I'm with someone who's very healthy, but it's like that was a fucking process. All right. That was like not for the faint of heart. So I want to it's just so interesting how like overachievers can come in all different like shapes and sizes for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Okay, I would really like to talk about now that we've kind of, our audience is going, oh, that is me. This is what I've gone through. This is what I'm dealing with. I would love to be able to kind of maybe give some stepping stones, some ways to really figure out, all right, now that I identify or I have suspicions that I am an overachiever or I'm facing these challenges, what do I do now? So I think, I mean, I was sorry, I cut you off, but yeah. So it's like, I think that the conversation is really just like, again, so she slays audience. We're not trying to like therapize you all in 30 minutes, but take these steps, because if you're a higher achiever, yeah, I think you're gonna really get something out of them.
Yeah. So is your question like, what should we do, right?
Yeah.
I think you really need to sit with yourself and take a pause, right? Which is the thing that you do not want to do, obviously. But you need to really sit with yourself and think about what kind of life and lifestyle, and what kind of person and what kind of life do you want to actually live, right? And what areas is it costing you as you continue to be this high achiever. I don't look at being a high achiever as a bad thing, right? I think it's a good thing, and it means you value. To me, being a high achiever is just someone that values ambition
Mm.
and hard work and doing like courageous things and having like a big vision. That's what it means to me.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about is what other things that might come together as a package with being a high achiever, and we see this correlation happen a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the problem comes in. It's not the issue is not with being a high achiever, but it's like being a high achiever and also being X, Y, and Z,
Mm.
right? So being a high achiever and, for example, believing that your self-worth is tied to your success. So that's two separate things. Not all high achievers think like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it does happen a lot. So I feel like people kind of think, oh, if you're a high achiever, then you must be like X, Y, and Z. But it's not always true, right? And you can continue to be a high achiever. That's a great thing. But then you have to learn how to develop true self-esteem rather than link your self-worth and your confidence to all the accolades and all the success. Because when it goes away, if that's where your sense of your self-worth comes from, and you fail on a project or your business fails or you don't get that promotion, then that's when you spiral, right? Because basically you're relying on something external to build your self-worth,
Yeah.
and that never works. That never works. And that's where like we see imposter syndrome, we see like all these like high functioning anxiety and all these other things happening. So I would say at the end of the day, as coaches, we always say every single problem is a self-esteem problem.
Oh.
And self-esteem is not self-confidence. So a lot of people think it's the same thing. It's actually not the same thing. Self-confidence is linked to a skill. It's linked to an ability. So if you've like been learning piano for like 20 years, you've performed in front of an audience for like 10 years of your life, you're going to be confident with that, right?
Yeah.
But if you are required to do public speaking, if you've never done it before, you're not going to be confident with that, right? Now, self-esteem is different. Self-esteem is a deep feeling inside you where you, if you have high self-esteem, you believe deeply that you deserve to be happy and to have the good things in life. You deserve it. And you will have this ability to overcome the obstacles in life that will allow you to achieve your goals and be happy, be in those like good relationships, and be successful with whatever you choose to do. So self-esteem comes from self-worth and self-efficacy, right? So it's like you believe that you are worthy of these good things. So you can be confident. When we're looking at high achieving people, usually they have high confidence because it's related to the skills that they've built, right? But not necessarily high self-esteem. And you can have really high confidence, but low self-esteem. And that's why when something goes wrong or you fail on something, then you kind of like, oh, like I'm worthless.
Yeah.
I'm worthless. I'm such a failure, because it's the low self-esteem. And so I would say the goal really for coaching or therapy is like, apart from like healing from your past wounds, is working on your self-esteem. So when you increase your self-esteem, that's when you can fail and still like, I'm happy with myself because I like who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm worthy of good things. And this is just like one thing that happened in my life. I failed on this project or this job or whatever, right? It's not linked to who you are, and it's not linked to your self-worth.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea or the concept of what we try to help, like try to help clients with. That's the goal.
Yeah.
It's to get you to a point where you like yourself in terms of your self identity. And how do we get there? We get there by increasing your self-esteem.
I feel yes. I also, like, I know there's going to be somebody out there listening who's just like, all of what you said makes total sense.
Mm.
I want to know though, like, what are the questions I need to be asking myself to be like, how do I build more self-esteem? Because I even feel like
Yeah.
if you're even raising somebody, right? You're like, how do I even build self-esteem? Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say the conversation around self esteem is like another, I could say 3 hour conversation. Like it's really deep. But I would recommend everybody, you don't even have to go and read the book, right? Nathaniel Branden is like the father of self esteem. So there's a book
Mhm.
called Six Pillars of Self Esteem. Just go to your ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, and get it to summarize for you. It will talk about the 6 pillars of self esteem, which is living consciously, self acceptance, living a purposeful life, which is like knowing your values and living a life making decisions based on those core values, right? It's like living a life of integrity. It's about self acceptance. Doesn't mean you are perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but there's nothing, you don't hate yourself, you don't
Yeah.
dislike yourself, right? You accept everything about yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And self-acceptance takes practice. If you didn't grow up learning how to do it,
Yeah.
if you grew up learning to reject yourself or criticize yourself, and you have that voice in your brain that's kind of like criticizing you when you're not perfect, to learn self-acceptance is a whole other thing, right?
Ooh, I'm gonna go download that book.
So it's really about, like, I'm trying to not go into the theory of like, oh, these are the
Yeah.
6 pillars. It's like trying to explain in simple terms that it's about like making promises to yourself and keeping those promises.
Mm.
And like thinking, if you're raising someone, you're raising a kid, this
Yeah.
is your daughter or your son, like how would you treat that person?
Oof.
And you treat yourself that way, you know, you treat that, you have boundaries, you are, there's also self-assertiveness, that's part of one of the 6 pillars, right? Because by doing all these things you are respecting yourself.
Mhm.
And as you keep on doing these things, you follow these 6 pillars, you respect yourself more,
Yeah.
you are aligned with your core values, you accept yourself, and all these things, those are things that are related to someone that has high self-esteem, right? As you think about somebody that is truly like has quiet confidence, not the type of confidence where you're just like on social
Loud.
media and like everybody look at me, right? Not that kind. Real confidence is quiet confidence, and that's kind of linked with self-esteem. So self-esteem is like just somebody that's really comfortable being in their own skin, like they are comfortable and they don't need to tell anybody about it, like
Mhm.
they really, you can really feel this sense of being, they have this, they're very peaceful and they like who they are and they don't need to try to convince anybody
Yeah.
who they are and that they actually like themselves, you know? And so I would say that's like one of the most important frameworks that I use with my clients, is to work on your self-esteem. And like that's the shift that needs to happen, that's the transformation, and it's not going to happen overnight, you know, it takes years and years sometimes, but if you, the point is you have to be consistent, you have to keep doing it, right?
Mhm.
You can't just like, okay, I'm gonna be assertive, I'm gonna follow my core values for like the next 3 months, and then later you just like go back to whatever you were doing. It doesn't work,
It
you
doesn't
just
like
have to
that.
keep doing. Yeah. And then as you do that, you respect yourself more. Other people respect you more, right? You like
Mhm.
yourself more because
Mhm.
of your behavior, and the way you treat yourself has changed. And that's why you like yourself more. And that's why you respect yourself,
Yeah.
right? And you're living consciously. So you're not making decisions out of emotion. You're using your logic brain, your prefrontal cortex brain, to make decisions in
Mm.
a logical way, and that therefore your decisions will be better than making it from being reactive or using emotions to make those decisions, right? Which is never really gonna it's not usually you don't make the right decisions when you're emotional and being reactive and getting and being in fight or flight. So
Yeah.
you want to be in a place where you are calm. And then there's other work in terms of nervous system, like your, you know, body work, breath work, and all these things to help you become less anxious and more secure and have a more calm nervous system where you can regulate better.
Mm.
So there's all these things, which is not like new stuff, right? We've heard
No.
about all these things, and there's no shortcut. You just have to do the work.
Yeah, there is no
Yeah.
shortcut, definitely. And all the things that you listed is all things that I still do. And I will tell you right now, it is a conscious effort every day. Am I great at
Yeah.
meditating every day? No. But I can tell when I have
Yeah.
gone too long because your girl is all sorts of anxious. And like I'm in my head and I'm in my emotions and I'm like, ooh, okay, we need to step back. So it's a learning process. To wrap up this interview, I just have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Just
And one of them
sure.
is to address those who are hyper independent, who are, very big high achievers, who struggle with the very subjects that we were talking about today. Are there
Mm.
materials, videos, or anything like that you would recommend that might make them reframe?
Reframe
Just
being
their
a
mindset.
high achiever.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say, well, there's tons of creators out there. There's so many podcasts. There's so many things. I wouldn't say I have anything particular that I would recommend. I would say I never give a formula to anybody. I would say go and look for that creator, that book, that expert, that psychologist, that therapist, or that person that just is sharing based off of their experience. And you if that person resonates with you and you feel that their advice is helping you, then just that might be the right person for you, right? Because I don't want to go say like, oh, just go and watch these experts, because it might not work for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Nathaniel Branden and his book and his theory, that's like what I really believe in. And there's other tons of things that you can study, like family systems therapy, Bowen family systems therapy, which is what I'm trained in. And like there's so many like psychology modalities and theories out there that we can study, and we can use AI to help us study. And I think we have the knowledge. It's not that we don't know, we don't have the knowledge. It's because we're not taking the action. And we think that by knowing means that we've already integrated it within ourselves, but it's not the same thing. So
True.
you need to practice. There's no shortcut. Yeah.
Okay, so hustle culture, workaholic culture, is that trauma in disguise?
I would say yes. Like it's two things, right? Some people really, they might not have the trauma, but they saw their parents work very hard. So they were born in that culture. They were born in that system. And some people might think that, oh, if I take a rest or I don't work for a day or two, then, that's bad. And they learn that in childhood. Usually you learn that from your family system. And it probably wouldn't be, not all the time that it would be considered a trauma, right? But then a lot of the times it is a trauma. And we mentioned that the thing about the CIA, the CIA, they do choose people that have trauma to join the CIA. They do, because like you've gone through all that like adversity.
Yeah.
That's how you survive in the CIA, right? A lot of the time it is trauma. It is childhood trauma, and it is like trying to survive and believing that if I fail and I'm not achieving and I'm not working, then I'm worthless. So a lot of times it is, but not all the time.
So
it's not always trauma.
Would you say what's more dangerous, low self-worth or like too much self-sufficiency? Because some people might reframe that as self-sufficient.
Yeah. What's the question again? Sorry.
So what's more dangerous, low self-worth or too much like self-sufficiency?
Let me think about that. Dangerous. Low self-worth or low self-esteem is never good, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not good for sure. Let's talk about self-sufficiency. Are you meaning like when you're like independent, you're trying to not rely on other people, and you're just like trying to do things by yourself? That could be good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that could be good, and that can serve you, and that can help you become successful. So I wouldn't use the word dangerous for any of these two things, but I would say like with self-sufficiency, it's a good thing. It can be a good thing. It might come with other things, but low self-esteem or low self-worth, that's not good for sure. I mean, nobody's going to argue that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And we all, like, if we have a lack of self-esteem, we do need to work on it.
Definitely. Okay, two more. One thing high achieving women need to hear, but actually just refuse to sometimes.
Um, when we're high achieving women, we don't want people to tell us to slow down or to pause or like, don't you want to rest and all that. And to be honest, I feel like everybody has to kind of hit that rock bottom, with whether it's in terms of health or relationship, in order to learn the lesson. Because we're very stubborn. I feel like high achieving people in general, not just women, are stubborn. But that's what got us to where we are. And that's like, you are determined. You are a person that is determined to do things and to get things done. And you are not going to listen to like
Anybody.
people, like normal people, tell you to stop doing this, stop thinking big, stop being like, you're not going to listen to that, right?
No.
And so I feel like there will be a point where if you continue a particular path or direction, you will hit that point and you will learn from it. So I don't know what to tell these people. I don't even know if anybody tried to tell me, hey, stop working, work on your health. Like you hear about that all the time, but you're not going to do it until something actually happens, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Last one. Most people avoid real inner work because, finish the sentence.
Because, oh God, it's the scariest thing to face your the truth, right? Because there's like all sorts of things there that you need to look at. And especially for a high achieving person, that makes you feel helpless and so vulnerable that, oh my God, there's something out of my control that I need to surrender to, right? And this is telling me that I'm not perfect and I'm not competent and I don't have I'm not on top of things. That's the worst thing for someone that is like high achieving, right?
Yeah.
So it's the scariest thing. It's the scariest thing for them to look at.
Yeah.
The truth.
Yeah.
Isn't
that the truth? Jeez. All right, Nida, where can people find you, follow you, all of the things?
Yeah, so Instagram, Nida Leard Official, LinkedIn, Nida Leardprasopsuk. Well, I guess you'll have to go to the show notes.
Go to the show notes. We'll link it all.
Yeah, and my website, which is nidaleard.com, and everything that I do is there, including the startup that I'm building at the moment, which is IRL. It's a new app that will reinvent how the world connects. If you want to sign up to be when we release the app, then you'll know about it. So just go and sign up there on the website.
Love that. Slay Nation, as always, thank you so much for listening. I hope that this really gives you something to think about and also lets you know you're not alone if you're in this high achieving circle yourself. We've all been there, we've all done it, and we're all currently trying to course correct. So until next time, Nida, thank you so much for joining. Slay Nation, we'll catch you later.
Thank you.